There we go. And Susharita, can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So what is the AU Youth Lab about? So the AU Youth Lab is an initiative, as you can see in the name, from the African Union and the European Union. It's a 4-year program, and the global objective of this program is to contribute to the empowerment of youth in Africa and in European Union, I forgot the word, and to strengthen their involvement in an active, meaningful way and innovative. There is 3 pillars, which is participation and representation, empowerment and capacity building, and youth initiative. So for each of these pillars, there are like specific activities. And here today, because we're here for the entrepreneurship grant, we're really under the 3rd pillar, the youth initiative, providing financial support to youth-led initiative. This program was built on the success of previous programs like the AUEU Youth Plug Initiative, but also the AUEU Youth Cooperation Hub. And it results from an extensive number of consultations with young people and youth organizations. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yes, please. So the Youth Lab actually has 2 labs. There is the Youth Voice Lab and the Youth Action Lab. So today we're under the Youth Action Lab, but there is also a sister program, which is the Youth Voice Lab. The Youth Voice Lab ensures that policy-making and decision-making processes around the African-EU partnership are more youth-responsive and inclusive, and that youth participation and representation is stronger. They have an app. You can have a look on the website. They will provide also training, and they also have a grant scheme that just have been launched. And we're here for the Youth Action Lab, which is really a regranting program. So we're going to regrant more than 110 grants in the next 3 years. It's grant from 5 to 50,000 euro. There is also an access to a digital platform to really collaborate between youth organization, and capacity strengthening is a really big element of this program. And as you can see, if you already looked at the funding manual, you can see that capacity strengthening is really an important element. Can we go to the next slide, please, Susharita? Yes. So under the Youth Action Lab, we have 4 grants. So we have the cooperation grant. That is the only grant scheme that is between that is across the African Union, the focus countries, and also the European Union. It's to really bring youth initiative together. The grants are for 50,000 euro, and it's really like to work collaboratively as a consortium. Then there is the representation grant, and if you want to learn more about this grant, there is a webinar tomorrow afternoon to really learn about it, more about the representation grant, and it's to really amplify the voice of underrepresented youth change maker. The grants are like from 10 to 20,000 euro. Then there is the innovation grant that is, it's really to drive bold and youth-led solution to tackle international challenge at scale. So it's really for global issues, and grant are like between 30 to 50,000 euro. And finally, the entrepreneurship grant, and that's the grant we're going to learn about more with my colleague Rose. And it's the same as the innovation grant. There is a scheme, the grant is between 30 to 50,000 euro. And each grant, because we work as a consortium, so each grant is led by a consortium partner. So the cooperation grant are led by a consortium partner, the European Youth Forum, that is a youth-led organization based in Europe. Representation grants is also led by another youth-led organization, which is Restless Development. And innovation and entrepreneurship grants are led by Oxfam, which is not youth-led, but youth-focused organization. And yes, that's you now, Susharita. Thank you.
Amazing. I am going to very quickly launch a poll to hear from you a little bit of what you think so far. Based on what we've told you about the Youth Action Lab, do you feel aligned to its motto? And are you excited to learn more about how the entrepreneurship grant works? I see some positive responses, quite a lot of positive responses. Amazing. Really glad to see that almost more than half of the participants have responded, and almost all of them are quite positively aligned as well. Amazing. Thanks so much for taking the time to fill this in. It's really nice to know that everybody's excited to be here. I'm going to end the poll now, and I'm going to move forward onto Rosalind.
Thank you so much for that, and really good to see the positive responses. So in the next 2 slides, I'm going to just quickly speak through the entrepreneurship grants, what it is we are looking for. So here we go. So the entrepreneurship grants, they provide youth actors, yourselves, with support to strengthen your own work on economic opportunities for young people. So the entrepreneurship grants are going to be focused on youth-led actions that address a threefold selection of key challenges young people face. So earlier, Alice did say that we're going to be giving out a total of 110 grants over the next 3 years. And for entrepreneurship grants, we have put themes for the next 3 years. So in the first year, we're looking at actions around skills development. And then second year, we'll look at growth of youth-led enterprises. And then in the third year, we'll look at actions around an enabling environment. That's very key to note that during this first call for proposals, the focus should be on skills development. So your entrepreneurship opportunity application should focus on skills development. And you might ask, why skills development? We see this as a key barrier for many young people around the world, a barrier that prevents them from engaging in economic opportunities. And it's really around access to skills development, which makes sense to young people. So what you'll find is sometimes there is a clear need for more skills development opportunities that address the mismatch between the skills that are taught, whether in high school, tertiary, and what young people actually need within their own context and even as individuals, and whether to obtain a job or to start up a business. And so that's why we think for entrepreneurship grants, it's key that we start with skills development and then we move to growth and then look at policy issues in the third year around an enabling environment. So some of the type of activities we are envisioning, and please note, we want your ideas, we want your thinking. This is just to try and help you, think through. So it's just a general guidance where we have identified 3 broad types of activities, basically. The first one, we're saying we want to see how you can develop, test, and implement a new skills development curriculum for young people. And also you can have an initiative around scaling up and existing skills development delivery, which can reach a wide diversity of young people. Thirdly, you can look at something around nurturing the exchange and coordination between youth-led skills development providers, where you also interact with local businesses or government actors. So those are just some of the thoughts and guidance around activities. But yeah, we want to see what you have in mind. So bring in your ideas. And then in terms of just some of the logistical and administrative issues to do with this entrepreneurship grant. So we have the eligibility criteria, which is very, very key. Your organization or social enterprise, in this case, should be youth-led. And by youth-led, we're looking at, the age range of 18 to 35, where young people are the decision makers. So that's very key, because we understand that organizations sometimes do have varied age ranges, and that's okay. But we want to see that the young people in those organizations are the decision makers and therefore it's a youth-led organization and not youth-focused. Another criteria is, especially in the case of an enterprise, that you are registered as a social enterprise or you are registered as a youth-led organization within your specific country. And you also need to be, formally registered. That's very key. You are, a legal entity in your country, and therefore we expect that you would have an organization or enterprise bank account, and that you have a clear governance structure. So this is not, a case where you are a sole proprietor, if we're using the business language, but you have a clear organization structure for your organization. And then key, your proposed activity must take place in one or more of the 12 focus countries that we've highlighted there on the screen on to my far right, which should be your left. So I'll just say out the countries: Ethiopia, Kenya, Mozambique, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Somalia and Somaliland region, Tanzania, Tunisia, Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. So these are the 12 focus countries where implementation is going to happen. Yes, I know that the AU is composed of many more countries than these ones, but specifically for implementation and the re-granting process, we're going to give to organizations that are based in these focus countries. Of course, our advocacy work will reach the whole of AU and the whole of EU. But for implementation, you should be based in one of these 12 countries. And another critical one, especially for entrepreneurship grants, is your annual budget, size of your grants. At least show us that you've had a budget of about 10,000 euro, you've managed a budget of about 10,000 euro, or your operations are around 10,000 euro. This is critical so that we can also have the assurance that you will be able to manage 30,000 to 50,000 euro. And so our offer, our budget is available for a minimum of 30,000 euro and a maximum of 50,000 euro. Please don't budget below 30,000 and above 50,000. It's between 30 and 50,000 euro. And then for this year, we are going to give out 6 grants, which means, sorry, out of all the applications that we're going to receive for entrepreneurship grants, after assessing and everything, we are going to contract 6 organizations who are going to receive the grant. So it's 6 grants that are going to be given to organizations. So it's a very competitive process, as you can see, and yeah, you'll need to make sure that your application is really fit for the purpose. And then our grants will be for a period of 12 months, which is from May 2025 to April 2026. And then we're going to have an inception meeting that will be held in the month of May 2025, just so you note for those who would have been selected. And then a big one would be our annual Link and Learn event, which will bring together all the grantees for this program from the 4 grant types. And this annual event will happen around November or December of 2025 this year. So that's something to look forward to. And we can touch a bit on this around the budget. We've had questions around how do you budget for this one. So let's look out for the answer to that one. Otherwise, I'll hand over back to Sucharita and Alice. Thank you.
Hi, yes. So now we're going to look at how we can apply, and I'm going to walk you through the OnGrip platform. So can we go to the next slide, Sucharita, please? Yes. So you can get the registration link from the website. So if you go in the AUEU Action Lab website, there is a specific page for the entrepreneurship webpage, and this is really your guidance. Here you will find all the information on the call for proposal for the entrepreneurship grants, the button to submit your application that will take you to the on-grid platform to register, but also at the end, the funding manual and the frequently asked questions. You need to pay attention. It's really a question we have frequently, and also we had applicant that had like some issue with that. Unfortunately, there is only one application per organization, and it's also for the reason that if we're not allowed to give more than one grant to each organization. Rest assured, if you're not selected for this round, there is other round of application in the next 3 years, so you will be able to apply to the other round type of grants applicable for proposal in the next years. You can check all the steps on the website before you start. There is also a video that our colleague created. It's everything to make your application process a bit easier. All application needs to be submitted online through the portal. It keeps things fair and transparent, and also it's really to support the trackability. And for you as well as applicants, you will be able to follow the status of your application once you submitted it, because the review process is also made on the platform. So everything is made on the platform, the application, but also the review. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to take you through the grant application. So 1 second. All right. So now you can see my screen. You can see, sorry, I can't see what I'm seeing. You can see that I'm sharing the ONGRIP app platform. So if you receive an email that looks a bit like a spam, but rest assured it's not. And when you click on it, you will be able to log in. You need to put a password. And then you arrive in this web page with some green on the top. And you need to go in My Application. Once you're in My Application, you click on your application, which has the name of the grant you're applying. You arrive on this detail page, but you don't have to change anything on this web page. This thing doesn't, you don't have to move anything. You need to focus on the narrative. So once you're in the narrative, first you need to select the language you want to apply in. If it's English, French, or Portuguese, because we accept application in these 3 languages. You go click next, and then you will have a few pages with a set of questions. So some questions are like have a drop-down menu, some question you need to write up. What's really important for you is to pay attention to the compulsory field, which are with the red star. And please have a look also for some question when there is I, which is more information on the question we ask, then we can give you guidance on what we request from you. So for example, here for the summary of the organization, please describe the vision, objective, and value of the organization. Here you can see it's a maximum of 2,000 characters because some answers are limited with number of characters. And also here we give you this really important information. It means that if your application is successful and your profile, the profile of your organization will be published. So you have a few pages with some organization, at first is some organization questions. So it's really like, what is the setup of your organization? And as you see, as we discussed with my colleague Rose, this call for proposal is for youth-led organization. So it's really important also to showcase how your organization is useless. So here we ask you the number of employees that are under 35, but also like how your organization governance structure is set up. And if you have an organigram, you can even submit it. So we understand how is the decision-making processes. You can click next if if you write up an answer, the platform will save it only if you write something and then you go to the next question. And if you can, you will be able to only to submit your application if you fill all the compulsory fields. And I'm going to not go through all the questions because it's quite it's a bit long, but you can see that towards the end we also ask question. I'll be there. So here it's about the risk because it's also something that is important. Sustainability of the project as well. So there is really different categories. And at the end, there is some annexes. What is important here is to have a look at, for example, the budget. We will discuss it in the next phase, in the next step of this presentation. And there are some requirements document that we require that are compulsory. For example, are your organization registration document, some reference check, and your policies, the one that are available. For the work plan, there is no specific format, so you're free to adapt it as it fits your organization and also your project. And there is also some other space for other documents, and it depends on what you would like for us to read. It really depends on your organization and also on your project, but please feel free to add any document that might be relevant. Here, what is important is at the end, you can only submit once all the compulsory fields are filled. And before you submit, you can also download here with this button on the right. You can download all your answers, but it also can be useful for you if you want to have like a Word version of your application, especially if you want to work offline with some colleagues, for example. And then you can put all your answers later on the platform. And then you can click on submit here. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I hope I was not too fast. And then if we could share the next slide. So Sharita, please. Yes, yes. So some tips. As we can see, there are some compulsory fields, so you need to pay attention to that. And there is also some word limits. Please upload all the required documents. Anything you have, any policies or supporting information would be really useful for this application. You can modify as you go, but the modification won't be allowed after the submission. So you can still for example, work on your application in the next days and submit later on. If you want, for example, a few days of reflection. But please avoid last-minute submission as the platform might be quite busy in the last days. And also if there is any technical issue, we might not be able to support you. And I think that would be it on the, I see a lot of hands are raised. Yes, my colleague Susharita is going to ask you how you feel about the platform. And we can also have a look at the questions together. Susharita, over to you.
All right, I'm going to launch another poll just to understand how you feel about the ONGRIP platform. If you could let us know if you find it useful, if you understand it, how accessible it feels. This is also to help us make the platform better and more accessible. If you do have more questions, please feel free to use the Q&A section. We will get to that later in the webinar, and we will be addressing all of the questions. I see quite some positive responses. And I also see that a lot of people are rating it as somewhat accessible, so between 5 and 7, which is really good. If you do have questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A box. Amazing. I will leave the poll open for another 10 seconds. All right, I'm going to close the poll now and hand it back.
Great, thank you. So we're just going to go through more tips, as it were, just to see what makes a successful application. Like I mentioned, this is a very competitive process. And so we want you to make sure that whatever application you send through, it's of a good quality and there's all the required content. So the first thing is that you have to make sure that you meet both the hard and soft eligibility criteria. This is expounded more in the funding manuals that you will find on our website. So please read through the funding manual for the entrepreneurship grant to make sure that you can tick each eligibility criteria. And the second thing is you need to clearly capture the innovativeness of your project. And so this is important just to show your response to the entrepreneurship grant. So we've already said that the theme is around skills development for this year. So you need to be very clear on what that skill development you are proposing is. It shouldn't be vague. You need to show how your project will benefit marginalized groups. This is very important. It's also defined in the funding manual. Essentially, we want you to be able to tell us what marginalization means to you and your organization and how the project you are proposing will benefit marginalized groups. And then you need to provide a clear approach to ensuring sustainability of your project results. So we want to see how the projects will continue after the grant period and how they will be sustained. You also need to show how the organization will work and coordinate with others in inter and intra cooperation. Already the name of this program is AUEU, so there's already cooperation expected there. And a lot of it will happen on our online platform, the Power to Voices, but also how you will envision interacting with other organizations within the African Union. So you need to also make sure that you detail that. And then lastly, you need to show the relevance of the proposed project in the ambitions of the fund. Again, please read the funding manual. And just some warning in terms of some of the things to just really concentrate on. The relevance is very important. This is an AUEU program. It has definite priorities. So you need to read your funding manuals and any other relevant information on our website so that you are relevant to the call. Eligibility criteria, very important. Take care of any small errors because this can lead to disqualification. So make sure that you are ticking all the boxes regarding the eligibility criteria. And then again, avoid incomplete sections. Alice has walked you through the application form. Make sure that you are properly answering each question. And then lastly, just a warning that, make sure that you are paying attention to the specificity of the content. I think trying to make it vague could disqualify you, but make sure that it's very specific in terms of the content of the application. And with that, you should be successful. Wish you all the best.
Thanks a lot, Rose, for all this advice. Yes, we wish you all the best. So now we're going to look at how you can make like a clear and strong budget. So for the budget guideline, you really need to check the funding manual, and for this, and it's at the end of the webpage for the entrepreneurship grant. And all budget information are in page 9 and 10. And you can also download the budget template from there. And as we said earlier, budget application can be made in English, French, and Portuguese, and the budget template is also in those languages. You can also have a look at the frequently asked questions, because we already tackle some question on what is eligible and not, and also on reporting information that would be useful for all applicants. What is really important is to use the official budget template that is provided in the funding manual. You can download it and fill it in. So please pay attention, because your application won't be considered if another template is used. Something that is really important is that the budget must be in euro. So you can include your local currency and the exchange rate that is applied to convert all your costs in euro. So for this scheme, there is no strict cap on salaries and overheads. The idea here is to be really reasonable and to justify your costs, because it has to be linked with the objective of your project. So all expenditure must be directly linked with all the project activities. And it's not only like for the cost, but it's also like to make sure that you connect the budget that you're making with the work plan and also the application responses, especially around the vocabulary you use. So yeah, that's the next point, is like be clear and precise, because the reviewer should really easily understand what you're talking about, like when they look at the budget, to make sure that each cost supports your project. So please use a consistent language to avoid confusion. Next slide, please, Susharita. So some common mistakes to avoid, yeah, costs without any justification. So every expenditure should be explained. As for the application itself, like please don't be vague. Really be really specific. So if there is a workshop for 3 days, really include like, okay, it's a trainer fee for 3 days on this topic. That will really help the reviewer. Please pay attention to the ineligible expenditure. They are all in the FQAs. And you can review the guidelines in the funding manual as well. And please don't submit a budget that exceeds the funding limit. So if you request for 30,000 euro, then the budget should match your grant request. And as for the application, please don't wait until the last minute, so you have the time to check the calculation and ensure all the alignment with the application itself. And that would be it for the budget side. Thank you all. I will give it over to Susharita.
Amazing. If you can all give us a reaction to see how we feel. Do you feel like your questions are answered? I see some hearts, I see some thumbs up. Lovely. I'm really glad to see this. Lovely. I'm really, really glad to see the positive response. I do know that there are quite some questions in the Q&A section, which is what I think we are about to move on to. But before that, some of the next steps.
Okay. So after this webinar, we advise you to go through the website again, read through the frequently asked questions and the funding manual carefully, so that you ensure that you have all the required information. And if you haven't done so already, please register to the Power to Voices platform, and in there follow the AUEU Youth Lab community. So this is a platform which, even if you don't get the grant, you can still be part of this platform and be interacting with youth across the globe. Thirdly, we will follow up any Q&As which are not answered during this session. We will try as much as possible in the time we still have to answer the questions in Q&A. I see there are about 69 questions. So we'll try and answer as much as we can. If we can't, we will follow up with a document on the website with the answers. And just a reminder that the due date is 19 February 2025, midnight CET. Make sure your application is in by then. If you delay by 20 February, the application process will be closed. So make sure you submit on or before the due date. And then the status of your application will be updated on the ON Grip portal. So you need to look out for that. More details will be shared on our Power to Voices platform and also on the website. We will send some alerts there. So yeah, we can move over, Sucharita, to the questions and see how far we go.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Rose and Alice. We can now look into some questions. We have quite a lot. I'm going to try and club them as best as I can. And like Rose said, if we don't make it to your question, we will go back through it and send you an overview of some of the unanswered questions. The first question is, how would the funds be disbursed if successful?
Yes, that's a really good question. So like for larger grants, like the entrepreneurship grant, it will be in two installments. So first, once we sign the agreements with the grantee, and also later at later stage. It won't be all in one go.
Thanks, Alice. Another question that I've seen a few times is that some organizations have offices in Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, or that they also have partnerships in an African country and in another country outside of the 12 countries. Is that allowed? What kind of partnerships are eligible for this grant?
Rose, please go ahead.
They have to be in the 12 focus countries. So while your organization might be based in other countries outside of the 12, but to apply for this specific grant, you need to be based in any one of the 12 countries, and also your operations need to be in these 12 focus countries. So that's a key eligibility criteria. Hope that answers that.
Amazing, thanks. There's also a few clarifying questions about the definition of a youth-led organization. Will we only work with organizations with leaders below 35 years of age, or what kind of criteria is there?
Okay, so that's why we also ask in the application, early in the application, that we ask how the organization works and the number of person that are actively involved in the organization below 35 and above 35. And we want to understand a bit more how the government structure is set up. So it's not because you have one of the funder that is above 35 that your organization is not eligible. It really matters of who's making the decision in the organization at the moment.
Thanks, Alice. I also see some questions asking about difficulties with the platform, that they've been trying to continue an application or that they haven't been able to register. Could you let them know what to do in that case?
Yes, thank you, Susharita. So we it's the first time we're using this platform as well, so that's something to note. So we experience some difficulties. Some difficulties can come from the fact that maybe you apply to more than one grant, and the system doesn't allow it. We have a specific email address, and I'm going to put it in the chat. So if you experience technical issues, you can reach out to us. Please be detailed, and also if you have any screenshot of the issue itself, please send that to us so we can look at it with our IT colleagues and get back to you as soon as possible. I will put the address in the chat now.
Amazing. Is the entrepreneurship grant the only one that a social enterprise can apply for, or are they also allowed to apply for other grant types?
I think as long as you can meet the eligibility criteria, the hard criteria in terms of being a youth-led organization, because we know that youth-led organizations sometimes are constituted or registered differently depending on your context. So sometimes you can be, a social group, but you're actually registered. You can be an NGO. So as long as you can meet that criteria of being legally registered, based in any of the 12 countries, and all the other eligibility criteria, then that's fine.
Thanks, Rose. I see another question. Could you please expand on the linking and learning activity? Does the budget for this link with the mandatory 5% that has to be allocated for capacity building, or is it separate?
No, so those two elements are different in the budget, and in the budget template we provided, it's really clear that every applicant needs to have a line for a budget to travel to the Link and Learn event, and also 5% of the grants of the budget of the grants needs to be allocated to capacity strengthening, and those are two different budget line. So they're not the same. It's quite different.
Thanks, Alice. Going back through the questions. I think there's quite some questions that we've already covered, and quite some questions highlighting really specific challenges with the ON Grip platform. And like we shared, please do reach out on the email ID that we sent you with details of your issue, as well as screenshots as much as you can, so that we can help you as comprehensively as possible. Another question I see is, how many staff can be paid for by the grant? Is there a limit?
I'm sorry, could you reply? Not repeat the question, Sushanta?
Yes. How many staff members can be paid for by the grant? Is there a limit?
No, so that's a really good question. Thanks for that. So as we said earlier, so there is no strict cap for salaries, neither for overheads. The idea here is to be really clear and fair, especially towards the objective of the project. So some projects might be more HR heavy than others. So there is no strict cap, but it has to be really linked to the objective of your project, and it has to.
Amazing, thanks. I also see a couple of questions around whether it's possible to apply for more than one grant type. And like we mentioned earlier, you can only apply for one grant type at a time. If you, for any reason, don't get through this year, you could apply for a different grant next round, but please make sure that you can only apply for one single grant.
I also saw some question about like cooperation. I think some participants today like are not based, might not be based in one of the focus countries, or they have collaboration also with a European country. So I think for this specific type of collaboration, you can please have a look at the cooperation grant scheme, because this is a scheme that is specific for collaboration between the focus countries and European in countries from the European Union. I also saw like a question on is it possible to apply also as a consortium for entrepreneurship grant? It is possible. So you will apply as lead, and in the application form you will have a question on specific question on that. Do you apply as a consortium? And then if you click yes, then you will be able to include the information of your consortium partner, so you can work together on this project.
Thanks, Alice. I also see one more question about where the linking and learning event is likely to be, because this would help to budget for it. And another question on how to budget for the linking and learning event.
Yes, that's yeah, it's a tricky one. We wish we will have more element on this, but at the moment we don't know where the link and learning event will be held. It will be in one of the 12 focus countries, so we advise to be quite conservative in the way you budget, because it's better to have a higher budget for the travel than to be limited because there is not enough budget. So what you need to budget, it's included in the funding manual and also in the budget template. So it's really the travel for the participants, accommodation on accommodation on location, sorry, but please also include visa and any insurance costs you may have. And for the rest, also there are some, if your organization has per diem policies, then you should follow your organization policies. So it's really like to try to have a budget that will be significant enough to be able for you to attend the Leak and Learning, which is the biggest event of the year for the grantees.
Thanks, Elise. Are sole proprietors allowed to apply?
I think within that, you need to just check the eligibility in terms of your governance structure. So yeah, sole proprietor is, an enterprise that is solely owned by an individual. But you need to then show us that you have a governance structure, accountability structures within that.
Thanks, Rose. We have a message also from a Rotaract Club, which is a community club, I believe. But are there clubs and other smaller bodies that are also allowed to participate if they have a governance structure?
Yes, they will have to meet. So in terms of eligibility, you have to meet all the eligibility requirements. And so we spoke about the hard criteria and also the soft criteria. So in assessing your eligibility, please just go through all of them. So it's not just one, that will ensure that you qualify to apply. So for the Rotaract Club, if you are, a constituted organization, youth-led, then that's one tick. You then look at the rest of the eligibility criteria in terms of a bank account, in terms of your experience, having, done some of the work that you're applying for, and some of the soft criteria. So just go through the funding manual to see what are those eligibility criteria in order to make an informed decision.
Great, thanks, Rose. I also see that there are questions about whether we can share the slides and the recording of the webinar. They will be made available on the website of the AUEU Youth Action Lab shortly. So you should be able to access the entire recording and the PowerPoint that we shared so that you have all of the information accessible to you. I also see a question about the Excel sheet template, saying that there are some challenges with it, specifically around the putting in exchange rates and getting incorrect numbers. Is that something they can also write to us for guidance on?
Yes, they can. I think if you're I was looking at the Excel myself to check what could be the issues. I don't find issues on my side. So they can write up to the address and describe their specific issues, and we will have a look at it together. So the idea here is to really like you have your budget in your local currency and you put the exchange rate for euro, and then it will calculate it on its own because the formula is already there. So it should work. But if there is any issues, please feel free to reach out on the email address.
Yeah. Perfect, thanks. We have time for maybe one or two last questions in case there is someone that wants to resend their question or someone who feels a question was not answered. I think there's a clarification of whether a program is allowed to be in multiple of the countries mentioned. So in, say, Uganda or Tanzania, both. Is that allowed?
Yes, as long as the activities are all in the focus countries, it's allowed, right, Rose? Sorry, I cut you. I'm sorry.
Yes, definitely. I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
Perfect.
And I just want to add that because we are looking at, you know, activities or innovations that will go to scale. So, but that's part of the scale. I think it will even earn you a bit more points if you can show that you are not just concentrating on one locality, but that the work that you are proposing is across the different countries or different communities.
Right. I think a final question I see is about the 10,000 euro criteria. What does it mean and how can we show it? Can we show it using purchases and salaries, for example?
So for the 10,000 euro annual budget or grant that were handled in the past, you can showcase maybe your annual accounts if you have some, or any annual reports that showcase that you handle more than 10,000 euro per year in the last years, to showcase that your organization is actually as enough capacity to be able to handle a grant up to 30,000 euro.
Perfect. I think we've covered as many questions as we can. We will go back through this list, then send you or upload questions that were not answered to the website again. All right. In that case, I think we can close. Alice?
Yes, I'm just wondering because I see like still 5 hands raised, and I was wondering if there is like really some maybe there are some burning questions that were not tackled. So I just wonder, but now I see more hands raising, so but I'm not sure we have the time to tackle them all, so that's why. Please put them in the chat. We will also assess all questions that we didn't have the time to look at it today. I think most of the questions were actually quite not similar, but they had quite some similarities, so we can really have a look at it together. The recording will be shared. The presentation also will be shared. For example, I see like Shekina, you said my question was not answered, but I cannot see your question before. So can you put it back? So to make sure that we tackle it. Yes. But yeah, thank you all. Thank you all for your attendance and all your questions. I hope you find all the information you needed. And I think, yes, we're going to slowly close this session.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to participate.
Okay, I see like there's still quite some question on can both non-profit and organization and for-profit companies apply? Yes, for this scheme, for entrepreneurship grants, if you're an enterprise, you can also apply. And as an enterprise can differ also from one country to another, we don't really have a definition per se, except if my colleague Rose has one. But I know for also it's the same for nonprofit as well. Like depending on the legal, the national legal framework, the name can differ from one country to another's.
Okay, I was looking for Shekina's question. So I think for that one, Shekina, if you can write to the program email that was shared on the chat, because that's a specific ON group IT issue. You can be assisted specifically there. So please do send your query to the email address that was shared.
All right. Thank you, Rose. Okay, let's close this this webinar. We will publish the video and also the presentation, and also we will go back to questions that were not answered. So I hope you will have all the information you need. And if you have any specific question, please feel free to reach out on the email address we shared. And thanks a lot for your attendance and good luck. We're really looking forward to receive all your application. Thank you, Rose and Susharita, for guiding us through the session today. And we wish you a nice evening or afternoon, depending where you're located.
Thanks, Alice.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
thanks, everyone.
Alice.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.